I'd like to call the meeting of the Ramsey County Commission to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us in person and online. Item for today's discussion is the approval of the 2025 preliminary budget. I want to thank Candy and her team for putting together all the numbers over the past couple days and coming up with a preliminary budget for us to review today and approve. Per century code, we have to have this preliminary budget approved by the 10th of August. And since nobody wanted to come in Saturday morning, we thought we'd do it today. Now, looking at the overall budget of 16.83 million, 083, $16,083,027.01, adding everything up, which is a decrease from last year's overall numbers by 1.448 million, and which is good news. Percent increase for the public notice would be 4.39%. Anybody have any discussion? Decrease 4.39%. We'll have our public hearing Tuesday, September 17th at 6 p.m. Ramsey County Courthouse, where opportunity for the public to come in. And just a reminder for everybody that we can go down from this point. We cannot go up. So I think if there's places that we think that we can cut, or whether it be an individual department, a political subdivision, an outside entity that's requested money, I think be prudent to maybe have them come in and discuss that proposed changes to their budget, either at our second meeting in August or our first meeting in September. And but overall, I'm very pleased with the budget. Thoughts, discussion? We'll open up the floor to the commission.
Well, I think the budget is kind of where it needs to be. We really haven't discussed how we're going to pay the captain at the LEC. Spoke with Sheriff Lang, and he's thinking if we go half and half this year, which I think is good. I don't think it's fair to the Ramsey County taxpayers that they pay the whole bill for that. That way, captain hasn't been on NDPERS long enough to be fully vested, so I don't want to see him lose that. I think that's a step in the right direction, straightening that out. So I got, I mean, we could obviously approve the budget, but that needs to be figured out exactly, because I think it's still in the LEC's budget as well.
It is.
So there, I mean, obviously we're not going to pay him double, but that, I mean, that, like I said, that's in the budget, so that's going to be a downward motion. I think treasurer needs to resubmit her budget following the guidelines she was given. And I know Bo, the numbers aren't going to change, but he had, with grade changes and stuff. And I think that, just to clarify, the numbers aren't going to change, but just to clarify that there's no grade changes at this time. I would like to talk to the training center, and I guess I'm getting mixed signals on that. There was a little bit of confusion on the 50,000 that he was supposed to get last year. We got that cleared up. And now it's kind of like he doesn't want that money, which is fine, but it's already been collected. So I'm not really sure where the training center's at, even when you read his letter that he submitted to us. He admits it's at a standstill, but I think we need to hear what exactly is going on there. On the Lake Region Community Shelter, I guess that's one I always struggle with, I guess. I'd like to have her come in and explain where that money she gets from us fits in her overall budget. In my opinion, I think commissioners should stand from their wages last year and not take 3%. I mean, we asked for 5% from everybody's budget, and it's just wages. So I think if we don't take the cost of living, that would be good to show that we're willing to put some skin in the game as well. I'd like to talk about the lake access specifically as well here in the future. And I think all the outside entities should take a 5% decrease as overall, because that's what we asked from our department heads. But as the budget stands now, I mean, all that's moving or cutting the budget. So, I think the budget could.
My
pass.
question is on the 501c3 entities that come in from the outside, when they were given money years past, it just seems like it's an every year thing. And was it meant to be an every year thing? Or was it meant to be, we're going to give you this, and then the next year it should have been relooked at? It should have been relooked at because now it just seems like people put the letter in and they're assuming they're just going to get that every year. And I guess the 501c clubs that I've been on, we've never just assumed that you just send a letter and you're going to get that money. I don't think that that's fair to the taxpayers at all, because then every 501c3 entity should be coming here and asking for money. I mean, because all 501c3s are supposed to be a good thing. And I mean, I could name a ton of them that help, tons of organizations that help our community, but they're not in here asking for thousands of dollars, I guess. And I am agreeant on the training center as far as giving them the money. We agreed to give them that 50,000, but if we're on a standstill and we're not moving along, what does that look like to the community? I mean, is it favorable or is it not favorable?
And I think all they're asking for the upcoming year is for the utilities, which we agreed to split with the city on that years back when they first came in about the proposed training center. And as far as the other 501, I guess I'm not sure exactly how that got going years and years back, whether it was looked at as part of, benefiting the community in a positive way. And you're right that there's multiple 501c3s that do that. How they tie into the county, I'm not 100% sure. I think they all have their own unique focus on what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do. Part of the deal is if it doesn't come from us, where does it come from? Some of those services are pretty important that are being provided, that some of these 501c3s provide. And not sure exactly if we want to see some of those go away and how, and one of the questions that we need to ask them coming up would be, if you didn't receive this money, how would you operate? You know, how would you go forward? What would be the plan? I think that's a legitimate question to be asking. So, Commissioner Wilhelmy, did you have anything you'd like to add?
I kind of difficult for me to hear some of this, but what I'm gathering is those departments that did not hit their or did not follow our ask as far as the salary increases and reductions. We were going to ask them to come back and justify what they came back with. Is that what I'm hearing? As well as the outside entities proposing doing a 5% reduction to what their ask was and asking them to come back. And kind of like I can hear you pretty well, Jeff, but the others it's difficult for me. So asking these 501c3 entities, if they didn't get the money from us, where would it come from? That's what the discussion is.
That's part of the discussion, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I can agree with that. That in some of them, yeah, where they do provide a service. Where would it come from? Yeah, we can't. I have a tough time taking everything away. And as far as I do think it would be a good idea to bring in the couple department heads that kind of went a different route. The treasurer and the state's attorney with what they were trying to do as far as wages, to try and maybe get some justification.
Well, as far as the state's attorney goes, his numbers aren't going to change. It's just going to clarify that, there's no grade changes. What I looked at the numbers last night is what I got out of that, right? They're still comparable to where they're supposed to be. So, yeah. But that would just clarify that.
But as far as
the state's attorney stuff, basically when I was looking at that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bo, when you look at the wages, it's pushing the individuals more to the top of the scale than it would be as far as looking like it's a change. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not.
But like the paralegals, that was a grade change because one was topped out. And Bo and I talked about that for those to move to another grade, they're working on a certification that they don't have to have. And that, if he makes that a requirement for the grade change, then we would know that ahead of time, ahead of next year's budget, and then we could talk,
then we know that's what's going to be there for that because of the requirement.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the numbers go, he kept their wages at their current, it just changed.
Yeah, it was a two-part ask. The numbers stayed the same, and I also asked the commission to approve moving them to the next grade because one is topped out. And then the other two are just in the middle of the grade. That was my ask. If you guys want me to come back and re-explain it, I sure can.
I think that's where I was at as well. I looked at that list and I was pleased at the end result, but there were some departments that seemed to falter from what we had requested. So I'd like the others see how they come back and verify what they have for their changes.
And it's something that I asked Candy this morning. Like the bathroom remodel and the salt sheds and their physical facilities. You know, if instead of taking that out as mills this year, if we could take that out of reserves. Just the whole goal of what I was trying to get to was a mill reduction. And I think, you know, I don't think I'll ever have a handle on the budget process. You learn more as we go here. So, I mean, this year I did actually learn quite a bit about the departments. But the idea was to reduce the mills. So I don't know how using reserves works. I don't like doing that because it's there for a reason. But since it's,
But like you're saying, Lee, as far as the upgrades or something that you need as far as facility,
I mean, it's going to be here for a long time.
the reserve is probably meant more for that than,
Having a shortcoming,
than to create a shortcoming anyway.
Ongoing services that we provide.
right?
And that's one of the things that we have to remember is that we don't want to diminish the quality of the services that our constituents have come to expect. I think all our departments do a really good job on the services that they do provide to the public. I think with inflationary issues that everybody's been feeling, the pinches, how do we balance that between compensating our employees and saving our taxpayer dollars it's been a tightrope act this year, probably more than any that I can remember. Been very difficult to try to balance all that stuff because everything across the board is going up everywhere, including the cost of us providing services or the equipment that we need to provide the services that we're providing. So overall, generally pleased with the outcome. I think legitimate questions that have been raised can get answered in the next 6 weeks. Whether or not, I think 5% is a big ask, especially on some of our smaller budgets, smaller departments.
Well, and I don't have a problem with the ones that couldn't make it. I mean,
Right.
it was legit.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't taking into it when I asked that. I wasn't taking into account that there's several of the budgets that are, so heavy on the salaries end of it that was, it's impossible to do that. So I mean, there's some, the ones that couldn't make it. I'm not belittling them in any way, shape, or form because that's just how that is actually works out.
Yeah, I was pleased that some of those departments were at least able to trim off, a couple $1,000 here and there. That it's just left it at that number, and we've never actually used it. But they were actually, went through and found stuff that could get cut. Something.
Well, and I think the easiest thing to do for today would be to approve the budget that's in front of us and then whittle it down between the next 3 meetings. And I think we can do a good job of doing that and, you know, potentially getting to where we'd like to be.
Yeah, like I said, I think the budget is a good place to start where we're at. I realize what I'm talking about here is just comparing it to $16 million is going to be a small deal, but I mean, if we could get some of that mill levy reduced a little bit more, you know, I think everybody out there assumes we're just spending money,
Right.
you know, and I think, you know, I do really appreciate, you know, the auditor and the sheriff found, you know, 3%, and that's a huge deal on those budgets because they're both, you know, pretty important to how the county functions. So
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we accept the preliminary budget.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion and a second to approve the preliminary budget. One thing for discussion, I know early on that it was discussed about a planning individual.
Yeah.
And-
But that's, I mean, we're so far from having anything for that. I mean, that's going to have to be next year. I don't think we're going to be ready to have anything for 2025 for that person to actually legitimately do.
Okay.
Because I have that written down too. That at this point, we're not far enough in the process. So that's,
Okay.
I mean, next year I don't think that's
No, it'll be here
It-
before you know it.
right. But I mean, right now, if we put it in the 25 budget, that person really isn't going to have a function currently.
Right. And I do think for moving forward beyond this year, starting this budget process probably a little earlier. And, you know, I think we discussed a finance committee within the commission. I think that'd be good to continue with that discussion, having a finance committee where one or two of us meeting with the department heads prior to, you know, June, when we're, you know, because then we have a better feeling of what the departments are going to be needing, where the budgets are going to be going, and we don't surprise our departments with unrealistic expectations, that everybody's on the same page moving forward. But I think that would be a good plan for upcoming year. And I think that's something that we can get it going. So, any further discussion on the motion of the approving the preliminary budget as presented? Tyler Technology and Vanguard. Where are we at with those?
I haven't gotten an email back yet from Tyler Technology because that will be running into 2025. So I need to know, like, billing wise, if we'll be paying anything in 2025. I know we had budgeted for an amount this year, but
But we haven't received anything to pay, right?
no, we've paid like 112,000
Oh, yeah, that's right.
to date.
Not sure exactly what we're gonna have.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
I mean, we still have how many months left?
Correct.
We could get a good portion of that.
Yeah.
Yet this year, but we don't know exactly what's gonna be for next year.
If it's minimal, if it's
Well, we set money aside for that, correct?
I
We had
thought,
set money
I
aside for
thought we
that.
were using reserve money for that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what we agreed to,
Yep.
because that way because we didn't know how the billing was gonna come in, and how do you put it in a budget if you don't know?
Well, and I think otherwise we would have spread it over like a 4 or 5 year time period, and we don't want to
Right.
drag it out if we could avoid it. And I think we
Um,
have the money in reserve to accomplish that goal.
And then I don't know where things are with Vanguard. You know, that was the 140,000 for them to do their part after the pictometry, like the flyover stuff was done. And that is done and paid.
So would they be keeping up with the tax office on that? Or with,
Yeah, and I can reach out to find out where we're at. If it'll be before the end of the year.
So you're saying that we should increase what we're looking at here? Or
we paid Vanguard though, did we not?
No, they haven't submitted a bill.
So did we not set that money aside on the budget already?
Right, but if we don't get a bill before the end of the year, then they have to have a spot in the budget for next year.
Tracking.
And that doesn't matter if it's coming off reserves or not. It still has to be in the budget, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, just so that you guys are aware where things are at. You know,
Because we obviously budgeted it once. It just hasn't been paid.
So I guess how does that work since we're going to use reserve money? And do we still?
But what I'm saying, Lee, that money shouldn't have went away. If there's $140,000
Right.
that we budgeted last year, that money should have rolled until we pay that bill.
right.
It didn't go anywhere.
Right.
well, and it carries over to general, and that's where it was coming from.
It's not like it's
Yeah.
off.
So
Right.
It's just
Yeah, I
stands
know.
still.
But just-
That's what Candy's saying. Correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong. Just so we're all understanding it
Yeah.
correctly.
I mean, I just want you guys to know what's, you know,
Gonna happen.
because those were, you know, $600,000 worth of money for this year that, you know,
That we haven't seen it.
that's, you
Get
know,
paid.
just the last, you know, I mean,
And maybe Beth would know more on where Vanguard is on.
yeah. Well, I can reach out to them too. So
Okay. Yeah, if we could do that.
So
that'd
we
be
know.
great. So then we
Yep.
would have that next meeting anyway.
Yep.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Right, Lee?
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on the 2025 preliminary budget? Hearing none, let's do a roll call.
Will,
Aye.
Hodis,
Aye.
Volk,
All right.
Gessner,
I
Fritz.
Aye. Motion carries. Preliminary budget is approved. Want to again thank the departments, thank Candy and her team for crunching the numbers in the last couple days. I know they're burning the midnight oil, and appreciate all the hard work. With that, meeting adjourned.